Hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on my third video. Y'all, this is really taken off way more than I expected. Thank you so much for the love, the wonderful messages, the support, the subscribing to my channels. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I also ask that you share these videos because the purpose of me doing these videos was to help others and prayerfully help someone not go through the torture I went through for 32 years. Well, for at least 25 of the 32 years. And to also encourage those victims that are out there that currently being abused that admittedly had the same idea that I had. Well, I've been in it over 30 years. What am I leaving now for? And it just took a lot of courage. And the courage God gave me, trust me, wasn't on my own. And now at 56, I'm starting a whole new life and a whole new journey. And it's actually not bad. So I want to encourage others. So share away. Share all you want, any platform you're on. So today I want to talk about another aspect in how abusers control their victims, and that's getting them to second guess everything that they do. Even the smallest of opinions, abusers will get their victims to second guess it because that's how they keep the control. With my ex, he had me to the point that I was second guessing every decision that I ever made, with the exception of money. I never second guessed my decisions on how to handle the money, the bills, groceries, or anything like that, because that was the one area he always complimented me in. Oh, you're so good. You handle money way better than I could. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you get all of these groceries and make that dollar stretch way more than I ever would have. You're just so good. And there were times that it kind of confused me because all my other decisions were awful. But in looking back at it, now that I'm out of that situation, I see what it was. He didn't want to deal with it. He didn't want to have to go do groceries. He didn't want to have to sit there and figure out how to pay $100 worth of bills on $50. Because basically that's what it was for a while. Because he had a major alcohol problem and he was spending way more money on alcohol than I even realized. And I kept track of the money. I was the one who had access to the online banking and everything. He didn't even deal with that because he didn't want to deal with it. And so because he didn't want to deal with it, that's the one area he complimented me in. That's the one area where he always lifted me up. Never said a bad thing about any decision I made with the bills. But in everything else, I was dead wrong. I mean, dead wrong, no matter what I thought about. I mean, if I thought about, for example, putting curtains on the window instead of blinds, oh, that would have been a bad decision. Because blinds are way better, blinds are easier to clean, whatever. It's just because it was my idea that it was wrong. But yet, let somebody else come up with the same idea, almost word for word, all of a sudden it's a great idea. And I called him on it a few times. It's like, well, wait a minute. I said that a while back, did I not? And of course, then he would have to backtrack and say, I'm sorry, you're right. I'll get better about that. It's just that because you always did this, then I didn't have much confidence in it. Because you always had the attitude that you were always right. Okay, go with that. There was never arguing with him on that, because if I even tried to argue and say, well, no, I wasn't like this, you're mistaken, that would start a mini war within a war. So it was not worth it. But it got to the point that I was second guessing every decision I ever made, except for the money. And I didn't realize this until right before he was removed from the home. And it was time for evaluations at my work. And with work, I work in an insurance company. I answer questions from members, verify coverage to medical offices, that sort of thing. And I also process claims. Well, claims has always been tough for me. And most of the time, the claims are pretty straightforward. You know, this, and this. But yet, I always struggled. And what my team leader had sent back an evaluation. And in the evaluation, it said, Penny knows more than she thinks she does. She just has to stop second guessing herself. I'm like, y'all, it was like an epiphany at that point, because it was like, first of all, I didn't think I knew as much as my team leader was saying I did. And then I started thinking, I told a coworker about it, and the coworker was like, yeah, I'm always asking you questions and you're coming up with the right answers. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah. And I went on with it, but that started the wheels turning. It's like, wow, I can do this. I can make decisions. And then in talking to coworkers about a decision I made about whatever, oh yeah, that's perfect. I didn't think about it like that. Oh yeah. And it's taken a while for me to trust my decisions. Um, One area I struggle in is making decisions. I'm There's times when I just dread making any decision, because I just don't like making them, because I'm afraid of making the wrong decision. And we're working on that with my therapist, and he says I'm getting better. I guess I am. I don't feel like I am, but I don't give myself nearly the credit that I should. He tells me that all the time. But that's what abusers will do. They will make you think you can't make any decisions, because that's how they control you. And then with my ex, he did something that was also the opposite. In addition to making me second guess every decision or even an opinion, he would also talk about how he couldn't live without me, he'd be lost without me. He was very morbid. He would bring up situations where you know, I sure hope that I go first, because if you go first, I'd go soon after, because I couldn't live without you. I'd just give up. And, he was very morbid. But also, in retrospect, I see what that was. It was a way of keeping me, because this was around the time that I started becoming more independent. I had a great job, the job I have now, supporting the three of us, my youngest son and him, on my one income, paying rent on time, paying all the bills on time, never late. And he was starting to get scared. I see that now. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. And in him getting scared, and knowing me, knowing I have the big heart I do for others, he would say, I could never live without you. I would just give up. In fact, after he was removed from the home, and I was talking with a very dear friend that has known us for quite a few years, and he had voiced the same concern that I did, that once my ex was served with the divorce papers, served that there's a hearing at such and such for the divorce, that he would just give up and not try, and just basically wither away and die, literally, because of not trying anymore, going into such a deep depression. And this friend was convinced of that, and quite honestly, a friend was saying the very thing that I was thinking, the very thing that kept me for so long, because that's what I kept thinking, that he's not going to make it without me. He not only does he not know how to take care of himself as far as bills, food, or whatever, he'll just give up without me. Well, that was all a manipulation tactic, because he's doing okay without me. He's going through some issues right now. I won't blast that. He's dealing with it. I'm not going to blast that story out for the world to see. But suffice it to say, God's dealing with him. And yet, he's getting through it. And he's coming up with ways to deal with it. And I'll be honest, y'all, that when I started realizing that, and how he is thriving without me, I started really getting angry. Because, not that he's thriving without me and moving on, fine, I don't care. That ship sailed anyway, like I've said in past videos. But it's because I stayed with him for quite a few years, because I was of the honest belief that he would wither away and die without me. And I didn't want that. I didn't want him dead. I wanted him to stop abusing me. I didn't want to deal with him anymore, but I didn't want him dead. And it's like, I came to the realization that I could have left him sooner, and he would have survived. And then I started feeling really guilty, because then I started thinking, my goodness, I put my kids through way more abuse, emotional abuse, than they needed to handle, because I wanted to try to find a way to keep him alive. to leave and then still keep him alive. And that's what abusers do. They mess with your mind. It's like they get in your mind. The best abusers, well, abusers that are the best at what they do are the ones that can get in your mind and, like I said last week, know your thoughts without you expressing anything. And it also helped that we were together for 32 years, so of course he's going to know me better than the average Joe on the street, or even someone that I've only known a few years. And it started all over again with the anger. Sorry, guys. Because I thought that he couldn't make it without me. And I'm not the only one that thought that. A lot of people did. A lot of people are actually surprised that he's thriving, comparatively speaking, dealing with the situation he's dealing with. And that's what abusers do. So if you're in a situation where the abuser makes you second guess everything, never displays any confidence in any decision that you make, and on the same token goes and says that they're not, that they can't live without you, then that's a form of control. Because he knew with my soft heart that that would get me rather, to stay way longer than I should have. And that is something that I deal with my kids, that it hurts so bad. Sorry guys, I had to go do something real quick. But they will make you think they can't do without you, because that's their way of controlling you. And that's what my ex did me. He had me convinced, hook, line, and sinker, that he'd be totally lost without me. And when the truth is, he's doing what he needs to do to survive what he's going through right now. And that is a regret I have, that my kids went through way more drama and emotional abuse than they should have, because I was trying to protect everybody. I was trying to protect my ex. I was trying to protect the family, keep the family together while fixing my ex. And of course, you can't fix anybody. They can only fix themselves. Obviously God, but you surely can't fix anyone. So if you're in a situation where your significant other is telling you, I'd be so lost without you, I couldn't live without you, I surely hope that one day I'm the one that goes first, because I couldn't live if you weren't around. That's a form of control. I mean, there's a difference between that and a couple that's been married 50 years and the man is like, or one spouse is to the other. You know, I can't imagine life without you. I can't. You know, there's a difference. And they will do anything to control you, because what I've discovered with a lot of abusers, they don't have control over their own lives, or they don't feel they have control. So they have to control others, including a spouse or significant other. And that's how they get this sense of control, because they feel like, okay, I can control this person, or I can control what others think around me, so I must be in control. And it's like, you almost feel sorry for them, because you have to wonder, um, if they have any self-esteem, if they think that they need control. But then it goes back to, they don't have to do this. They can get help if they don't feel they have control over their own lives. Some abusers, it's a power trip. They, for lack of a better way of saying it, they get their jollies off of controlling others, and off of seeing how much they can control the actions of another person. I know my ex did. He controlled almost every aspect, like I talked about either last week or, last week, about how I was at a Bible study, a ladies' Bible study on a Saturday morning, and we got to talking a little bit more, but because I was a few minutes late, he claimed he was worried at first. No, things were not going as he had planned it out, so he was starting to get worried that I was not wanting to be around him. He got it in his head that, he was very paranoid that I was talking to others. I'd rather talk with others than talk with him. Plotting things, any sort of things. I would go somewhere, like if I, on the rare occasion, when I would go to the grocery store alone, he would tell me, call me when you get there. And he had it in his mind about how long it would be to get from my place to the grocery store. And he would literally, I'm picking the phone up to call him, and he's calling me. Just wondering where you are. Dude, I just arrived. Oh, well, it was taking a little long. Not really. Or, if it was, there's a thing called traffic. Sometimes traffic is a little thicker than, where I am, where I live, everybody's into football. It could have been a home game Saturday, any number of things. But he always had to have control. Like if I'd go visit my mother, he would say, call me when you get there so I know you made it okay. I always took it that he was worried about me. The last of the knights in shining armor, I called him. No, it wasn't that he was concerned about me. In the fact that he was concerned about my well-being, he was just concerned that I went to where I said I was going to be, and that he still had control over me. Because it was a power trip. Just like I would be visiting my mom, and after about a half hour, 45 minutes, he'd start texting me. How long are you going to be? Are you going to be much longer? I'm hungry. I'd like this. I'd like that. Or he'd call me a bazillion times wanting to tell me something. And it's like, couldn't this have waited? I'll be home in a little while. Couldn't this have waited? I'm afraid I might forget. Write it down. And it was all a form of control, because he controlled everything. He even influenced how I dressed. He had a thing for women with knee-high boots. I like boots, but I was not much for the knee-high boots, and I have wide legs, so I always had to get the wide leg boots, and I never liked that, because most wide leg boots, though they say they're wide legs, they're not. And I just don't like the style. I'd rather the calf-high boots. Well, anyway, he pushed for I don't know how long for me to get thigh-high boots. Try this again. Knee-high boots. Sorry, guys. And I finally got some. And, oh man, he loved it every time I put them on. I remember this was quite a few years ago. I want to say 14, 15 years ago. I bought a few clothes from Wally World because I needed clothes. I don't buy clothes very often. And they weren't in the style he liked. And one day he commented, "Are you trying to look like your mother?" And I'm like, no. Newsflash, I look like my mother. Even with family members that had not seen me in years, I go to a family get-together, they see me, they immediately know I'm my mother's daughter. They say, "Oh, your daughter." Yeah. Kinda can't help it. But, and then he said, "Well, you're dressing like her." I said, "No, I'm not. I just like the clothes." And he's like, "Well, you dress like an old lady." That hurt like you would not believe. That stung. That night, I went in my closet, took down all the clothes that he didn't like off the hangers, put them on a closet floor for the time being, didn't wear them again. And that's how they get control. The more they can control you in any aspect, the more control they have. It was to the point to where he controlled my thoughts even. He had certain ideas about certain people, certain people group, and that was actually starting to influence me. And when I realized that, oh my goodness, I had to put myself in check almost immediately. It took a minute for me to realize that. But he had influenced me so much, even on my idea of different people groups. And I'm still discovering what I like and what I don't like. Because when you're with a person for as long as I was with him, your ideas are going to meld. That's a given. But it got to the point to where, like I told my daughter, after a few days after he was removed, she came by to see me, And she asked if I like something. I forgot what. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to have to discover for myself what I like and don't like. Because all my likes were his likes. There was only one thing that I liked that I could call my own. And now you're going to laugh, but it was country music. I loved country music from way before I ever knew him. And I always listened to country music. And it was kind of funny when we first got together because he was into rock and heavy metal, and I was into country. Well, over the years, he listened to some country, but when we were in the car together, we only listened to the music he listened to. When I wanted to listen to my country or to one of my old 80s hair band music, oh, he always had a problem with it. Oh, I can't listen to that. It's this. I can't listen to that. Uh, but yet, I got subjected to his music. And most of the music was okay. Most of the music that he listened to, though I was never into it, I kind of listened to it. But there was some that actually I cringe at if I hear, like if somebody's driving by and playing that music, I'll actually cringe. And that's what abusers do. So when you're starting to second guess yourself, step back and think, is this me not having confidence, or is this how I've been programmed? So thank you guys. I've already made this video longer than I expected, but it was a lot to cover, and I will see you guys next week. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share away. You guys have a good week. Bye.